Anybody who stays in denial or blaming somebody else for their problems, I cannot help that person because they do not want to be helped. They want to put blame on somebody else. They want somebody else to change so that their life changes rather than I change to change my own life. There are two different types of people in the world. One puts the accountability, the responsibility on other people to change so that they get better outcomes. The other puts the responsibility on themselves to change so that they get better outcomes. It's two different types of people. Can you identify which one you are? And I'll give you a hint. It's going to be the minority in almost any room.
Hey y'all, welcome to Boundaries and Grace.
Hey y'all, I'm Taylor Chandler. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist, helping people break negative relationship patterns. Y'all, today we're wrapping the season. We're going to talk about the reasonable person. We're going to talk a bit about what's happened all through this season and some of what's going to happen next. Hi, happy Saturday. We're not going to be here long. I'm actually not feeling very well, which is really uncommon. I'm not feeling very well. We're not going to be here that long. We're just going to wrap this season up. How are y'all doing? Happy Saturday. I'm going to outline for you who the reasonable person is, because the reasonable person is the kind of person that is the only kind of person that I'll work with. Okay. I want y'all to understand. Let's go ahead and get into it. I want y'all to understand. Oh, thank you so much. Thank you. I appreciate that, y'all. Thank you. I'm at a place in my work. I'm a therapist. I am not a full-time content creator, okay? I'm really not. I actually have a whole career, I have a whole job where I work with actual people offline, all right? Now, I get most of my clients through Instagram and through my podcast, which has been great. I never would have imagined that. It's really cool. I like that. I'm not even like a social media person. I don't know if you can tell. I'm here for me, like for my business. I'm not a social media kind of person. But I get most of my clients through social media. I'm not a full-time content creator. I'm an actual therapist and an actual coach in real life. I think that's lost on many people. Okay, which is fine. It's fine. But one of the thing that I've been really focused on this season has been making distinctions between who is who, because I don't just want to talk about a bunch of topics. We actually have to do something. Now, my clients have been doing things for years, and people and the couples I've worked with and groups I've worked with, they've been doing things for years, and that's been great. And now we're just doing it on a larger scale, which is even more great. The thing is, though, I'm very aware that this work is not for everybody. I am for a minority of people. You may have heard my metaphor recently about economy seating, main cabin, and first class seating, okay? I'm not for the economy people. Economy people are people who basically want to get where the first class people are going without paying first class prices. This has nothing to do actually with your money. This has a lot more to do with your mentality. Okay? It has a lot more to do with your mentality. It's not that I'm not for people that don't have money. It's that I'm not for people who have a poor mentality. So I've spent this season making distinctions between who is who, because the goal is not to get as many people as possible on board. As a matter of fact, I find that when someone tries to do that, like, in other words, like trying to appease people, please people, refuse to draw lines with people, you end up with a lot of liabilities. I don't like liabilities. I'm a very efficient person, very pragmatic. We're going to talk a little bit about what that means. I don't want a whole bunch of people on my train that's pulling us back. Okay? I don't want a bunch of people on my plane that's weighing us down. I don't want any extra cargo. Okay? I don't like carrying any extra weight in my life, physically, mentally, emotionally. I don't want any extra weight. And I don't want any extra weight in my work. Now, in the past, y'all, we'll get to the reasonable person in just a moment. In the past, y'all, I have spent time working with people who don't fit this criteria. Why? Because I was trying to help. Listen, was trying to help them. I spent time with people who actually aren't aligned with my values. And I'll be clear, that doesn't mean we have to believe the same thing. We're going to talk a little bit about that. It doesn't mean we have to believe the same thing or want the same things, but we're talking about values in terms of the way that you move through the world and values of a high character person, high morals, high ethics, doing the true right thing. All right. And people who don't have that kind of orientation to the world are total drains. These are the people who go to therapy or end up in coaching, and they will waste your time. Why? Because they just want someone to affirm them, to validate them, and to comfort them, but they do not want change. As a matter of fact, when you try to highlight the kind of changes that they should make, yes, should make. Why? Because they would get better outcomes. When you highlight the kind of change that someone should make for better outcomes, they actually have a problem. Why? Because they don't want to be challenged to change. They want to be appeased. They want to be rocked to sleep in their delusion and their comfort. So we spent some time this season making some distinctions between different types of people. We talked about the industrious woman. We talked about the inferior man. Did you all see these episodes? The industrious woman, the inferior man, red pill radicals, radical feminists, the big mass of Black women. Did you all hear? You made some distinctions between different types of people. Most recently, we talked about the difference between pro-social and anti-social people. This season, not only have I made distinctions, but I've also played some social media games. Okay? I also played some social media games. What kind of games does that include? All right? I also played some social media games. What's that? Well, it's framing things in a gendered way and in a polarized way, because that's what people react to. That's what people respond to. Unfortunately, people don't really engage with high character content for the most part. All right. So this season, played a little social media games while also in these full episodes, which if you only see the reels, then you really don't get to see the whole, the whole picture. What we really end up seeing is that it's not about a gender issue, and it never was, and I never thought it was. We don't have gender issues. We have mentality issues. All right. We have unreasonable men and unreasonable women. Now, before I go any further, I have to say this. I help people develop relationships. I help people break patterns that prevent them from getting the kind of outcomes that they want. In order to have a healthy relationship, you have to be a healthy individual. You can't just skip steps. All right? You can't just skip steps. How many people, might have been you at one point, how many people do you know that wants the best kind of relationship? They spend a bunch of time talking about dating or what's going wrong with dating, but they don't spend half the amount of time talking about them and why they themselves as an individual cannot elicit the kind of responses from a man or from a woman that they want. If you're not an incredible individual, you cannot expect to have an incredible relationship. Okay? So I help people become better individuals. To be really clear, I only want to help people who want to be in relationships. I am not for people who want to stay lone wolves for their whole life, man or woman. For people who want marriage. When I made that content and I called women out about a lot of stuff, and we have more to do. I called women out for a lot of stuff. And it's interesting. Men loved it. They love when I do it. They love when I do that. They love when I do it. I talked about on the radical red pill episode. I have no interest in pandering to or serving just the red pill community, because you all are too easy to please and you're too easy to manipulate. You understand what I'm saying? Like, I am uninterested in solving easy problems. An easy problem to solve is men's frustration. Because one way to solve men's frustration is to villainize women and to make women responsible for men's outcomes, to make women responsible for what men can or can't do. It's interesting how there's a lot of hypocrisy. I'm going to be calling a lot of that out next season. A lot of hypocrisy. And one person who's like this unreasonable man. That same person, an unreasonable man, not all men, an unreasonable man will say, men run everything. Men are the head. Men are leaders. Women submit to men. It's a patriarchy through and through. In the same breath, that unreasonable man will say, it's women who don't let me be a man. How is that even, do you hear yourselves? I'm not interested in serving that type of man because you're so unreasonable. I'm not interested, and you're narrow-minded. I have an issue with that type of person because they really don't want a real solution. They really are the same as delusional women in the sense that they just want to be comforted. And they don't want to be called out of the delusion because the delusion became the comfort zone, okay? The state of disempowerment, helplessness. What can I do? The women are taking over. I can't. What can I do? I thought you were a man, though. What can I do? I'm uninterested in serving that type of man because you can't be helped because you don't want to be helped. Wait, it's because no one is beyond being, no one is out of the realm of being helped. I believe everybody can be helped. But if you don't want to be helped, I'm uninterested in serving you. Because what you want me to do is you don't want to heal the wounds. You want to just kind of stroke the wound. You don't want the wound to go away because the wound, that anger and that resentment becomes such an important part of your identity that you don't know who you would be without it. And you become so entrenched in that anger. You don't even want to be helped because you can't even imagine what it would be like if that problem was actually resolved. I'm uninterested in serving that type of man. You all are too easily pleased. It's too easy and you're too easily manipulated. I'm uninterested in faking like I'm solving a problem by stroking your ego. Okay? And by not actually resolving the problem. But I'm uninterested in serving women who refuse to be held accountable for their actions. I do not want to, I won't. I fire clients now, okay? I didn't used to do that at the beginning of my career. I actually fire clients now who say on the surface that they want one thing, but when the thing shows up, they refuse that thing. Let's be more specific. I have to fire clients who on the surface say, I want change. But when the change that you need to make is called out and you're confronted with the part of you that has been holding you back, the part of you that is in the way of you getting the outcome you want, you refuse to confront it. You're in denial, in delusion, you deflect. It's men's fault. It's your parents' fault. It's the government's fault. It's Trump. It's somebody. It's anybody other than you. I have to fire you when you refuse to see that you are in the way. Now, someone who, when they're confronted with their denial, it's like, hey, do you recognize that this is like denial? Do you recognize that you're deflecting away from reality? And then they say, oh my gosh, I can see it. And it becomes revealed to them that they're in the way. And then they make a conscious effort to change the part of them that refuse to see the truth and they really open their eyes. That is someone that has real potential to change. But anybody who stays in denial or blaming somebody else for their problems, I cannot help that person because they do not want to be helped. They want to put blame on somebody else. They want somebody else to change so that their life changes. Did you hear that? This type of person wants someone else to change so that their life changes, rather than I change to change my own life. It's very simple. There are two different types of people in the world. This whole season, I've been distinguishing them based on different identities as they show up in the world. But if you went back and you were to listen to every episode, you're going to see that there are just two types of people in the world. One puts the accountability, the responsibility on other people to change so that they get better outcomes. The other puts the responsibility on themselves to change so that they get better outcomes. It's two different types of people. There's a lot of gray area in a whole lot of situations. But right now, I want you to make this a black and white issue. I want you to ignore the nuance. Well, what about the parents? Well, what about age? Well, what about sex? Well, what about isms are so irritating. When people who do the whatabouts are they want to take conversations to such nuanced lengths that we can't talk about the truth of the matter. People who go to what about isms, what about this, what about that? You're not a principled person. What does that mean? Not being a principled person. It means that you leave so much margin for change. Everything is so subjective to you that you don't have a code that you live by or a thought pattern that you think by. Everything's subjective. It all depends. I find you all so irritating because you're not my type of person. Now, there's a space for you in like think tanks and people who just want to brainstorm all damn day, but not for solution-focused people. People who really want solutions need to have principles, because there have to be principles that you can work to get a certain outcome. Principles that you can work that are so consistent in getting you the kind of outcome you want, that if Jane does it, and if Dave does it, and if Keisha does it, and if Jessica does it, if they all live by the same principle, they'll all generally get the outcome that they're looking for. But people who go to whataboutisms are not principled people. They refuse to acknowledge or even see that there are principles that work to get certain outcomes. Everything's so nuanced, everything is so subjective that they can't identify or won't identify the patterns to success. These are people I find who end up, they're the most stagnant group. They think they're the most intellectual because all they do is talk and theorize. But I find that they're the most stagnant group because they're not principled. Principles get you traction. Principles get you momentum. And when you know how to work a principle to get a certain outcome, when you know how to work principles to get a certain outcome, you get traction, you get momentum, you move in a consistent way in a particular direction. But when you're not a principled person, you're very erratic. You're chaotic. You talk a lot and you don't go anywhere. I dislike unprincipled people. Are y'all okay? I'm just kind of getting some things. I'm just kind of getting some things out right now as we wrap this season. There's two types, y'all, in the world. You put the responsibility on someone else for your life to get better, or you take the responsibility for your life to get better. Can you identify which one you are? And I'll give you a hint. It's going to be the minority in almost any room. Unless you intentionally put yourself in a space where this type of people is called into the room, I guarantee you, in general, this type of person is the minority of any room. And I'm not talking about black. I'm talking about black, white, Asian. I'm talking about in general. I think that black people are the worst about this. So let me be clear. I don't have a statistic for you. I'm just going to give you my perspective on this episode. I'm going to give you my perspective. I think a person who takes full 100% responsibility for their outcomes is the minority of people in any room in general. I think that among black people, it's going to be an even smaller percentage, because black people have essentially, in my opinion, been trained, conditioned to put their responsibility of their outcomes on somebody else. And you know what? We got some good reason to do it. Slavery is a big deal, but I always found it interesting that the Jews don't talk about the Holocaust nearly as much. I'm not putting them on the same page. I'm talking about the principle. Be very clear. I'm not putting them on equal levels. I'm talking about the principle of assigning the quality of your outcomes on something else, even something catastrophic, even something inhumane. Something that looks like, yeah, that was a big deal, because it was. And still, and y'all, I'm telling you, people they compare me to Candace Owens, which is interesting. People compare me to Candace Owens. Reason why I find it interesting is because y'all, you only got one black woman who you can point to that'll say this out loud. Now you feel like you got just two? That feels like a small number of black women that will say, hey, it looks like black people are playing victim just a little too well. That's what I think. Somebody called me a Timu Candace. That was not nice. Not nice. Someone called me a less educated Candace Owens. Not nice. But it's also not an insult. For real, it's really not, because there are some things, y'all. There are some things that lady got right. I do think that black people play victim too well. Right? It's not just that night. But I've said some things too, so it's okay. I've been saying all kinds of stuff this season. So I'm just like, you know what? All right. All right. I've been talking about big people. I've been talking about black people. I've been talking about men. I've been talking about women. So, you know what? Okay. 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 Fine. I've heard things like, I must dislike black people. One of the craziest mental fallacies, I think, of black people in general is when someone calls out a deficiency in black people. Now you don't like black people. People who don't like you just won't tell you. People who don't like you just won't tell you what's wrong with you. They're just gonna let you drown. So I think it's an interesting fallacy that the Black community in general has, that tends to put things like you must hate Black people because you're willing to call out deficiencies in Black people. Black people have been way too lax. And our grandparents and great grandparents were not this way. So it's not a Black person. It's not in your genetics to be like this. These are learned behaviors, learned ways of thinking. This is not in your DNA. So I really think, y'all, that Black people have been conditioned and essentially trained to put the onus on someone else. It's someone else's fault. We are so free, y'all. We're so free. And we act like, in my opinion, our generation acts more like slaves than our great grandparents. And they was out there. Their parents was out there. Your parents had maybe some kind of normal job, free to go to work, free to earn a living, free to vote, free to marry who they want. How is it that our generation you over-identify with being a slave? You the furthest, today is the furthest from slavery we ever been. How are you still acting like a slave? Why do you like that? It's not funny. That's probably the least funny thing I said this whole season. Let me put my bun back up. That's probably the least funny thing I've said all season. Why do you like that? Something about that you get something out of that? What in the world? Today, March 15th, 2025, the furthest from slavery we have ever been. But you keep wanting to pull slavery back in. You the freest you ever been, dummy. And you won't act like it. So when you won't even act like it, it reminds me of, y'all, you know why we have Juneteenth, right? Because slaves in Texas didn't get the message that the Emancipation Proclamation was signed. You're free. So our Black brothers and sisters were out there clocking time when they were already free. And I see a parallel today. You've been free. A lot's happened since the Emancipation Proclamation. You've been free, but you acting like, and you know what? That leads me to believe, I don't have a statistic for you. It leads me to believe that you think that there's more in identifying as a slave. I think that you want some kind of entitlements. Like you want somebody to say, you know what? You deserve more just because you're Black. Your great grandparents didn't get it. And they were even of higher character and of a higher work ethic than you. But you, in this generation, you want what your great grandparents didn't even get, and their parents were really out there, and you want us to give it to you? How do you think that you should get more than the people who endured more? I can't stand your type. I can't stand your type, straight up. Let me stop on that one because we weren't even here for that today. We were not here for that today. Two types of people. You put it on you to better your life outcomes, or you put it on somebody else. Can you even identify which one you are? Let me tell you how you could find out. Let me tell you how you can assess yourself. Audit your thoughts. What are you consuming? You know, some people like to watch these crazy videos online about people doing crazy and weird things, antisocial behavior, as we talked about last episode, antisocial behaviors, things that prevent harmony, uncooperative, disharmony, disrespectful, that kind of thing. Some of y'all like consuming that kind of content because it validates this thought that you have that it's other people's fault that you can't do better, that you can't get what you want because they're doing something that they shouldn't be doing. And you spend so much time watching their crazy asses that you don't look at the fact that you have just wasted another hour of your life thinking about what other people are doing, and you haven't spent an hour of your life this week on what you could be doing better. That's a sign. That's a sign that you one of the people who puts it on somebody else to get better outcomes. That's a sign, a modern day sign. How you spend your time. Do you spend your time actually self-developing, or do you just theorize about it? You just want to talk about it. And I'm telling you, y'all, again, this is most people. The people who really take responsibility are the minority. Think about your group projects when you were in school. Were you the type of person, because this stuff shows up early. Now, I'm not saying you can turn it. You can, grow to choose to be this type of person, but this type of stuff can show up very early. You might have been the person that when it was a group project, you knew you were going to be the one that did most of the work, right? Because you had the best ideas. You had the best ideas, the best work ethic. How do I know? Because that was me. Of course. You got the best ideas, the best work ethic. You know how to organize people. You know how to delegate. You know how to plan. You pass the ball to me. Just give it to me. No, and it's not going to be a problem. We all going to get A's because of me. Look, let's be for real. Now you're either still that person, or you have become that person, or you're the type, and this is the majority, y'all, and you got to be honest with yourself. You're the type that rides on someone else's coattails. It doesn't mean that you're a mean person, that you're a destructive person, but you're also not very helpful. And you rely on someone else's progress for you to progress. That's an example, y'all, of someone who puts the responsibility on someone else for their outcomes. It's not just blaming somebody else. It's also waiting on somebody else. Come on. And which one are you? Which one are you? What we're going to be doing next season is about individual development and relational development. Really putting the building blocks out there, putting the framework out there so that you can essentially stop being dead weight. Straight up. Yeah. Thank you. So you can essentially stop being dead weight. Some people, it's not that because there's so many different different nuances of this. It's true. Different categories of people. So some people are just lazy, but honestly, some people just don't know. Some people just don't know what to do. So we have to give you we're going to give you a framework to work out of, and some things that you can get involved in to actually build this thing out. Because it's not always that someone is lazy. Sometimes it's that someone is ignorant. Ignorant doesn't mean stupid. Ignorant means uninformed. It doesn't mean unintelligent. It means that you don't know. Okay? So we want to build out a framework for you. You know, Black people don't have enough Black people building out success frameworks. You spend way too much time. You have spent, y'all, especially Black women lately, have spent way too much time in church. I don't want to get into this today. You spend way too much time in theory and way too much time in the abstract. Okay? Gentlemen spent way too much time in the red pill rabbit hole, theorizing, talking about things without actual embodying the things. Talking about ideals without embodiment. Talking about theories, but you don't have traction. And we don't have enough Black people that actually can show you how to get traction. Because a lot of Black people won't listen to the white people that could help them. That's an issue too. You don't trust the white people to do it, and the Black people not talking about it, or the Black leaders aren't giving you a framework. We got a lot of very smart Black theorists. I don't think we have enough Black practitioners that are out loud about how to do the practice. So I think Black people are in this purgatory. It's not heaven, it's not hell, but it's like you floating in the middle. I want to move you to the other side as quickly as possible. So we're gonna be we gotta get this individual framework, because you can't get. I only want to work with people. The stuff that who my mission is really for is for people who actually want relationships. Now, so if you're someone who has sworn off relationship, if you're someone who has sworn off marriage, you don't even have the right attitude for me. You don't even have the right attitude. I'm going to just tell you that right now. You don't even have the right attitude. Part of the reason why you can't get what it is that you want, because your attitude is bad. We got a lot of attitude problems among the people. Bad attitudes, rigid, like inflexible, not open, narrow-minded. Negative, cynical, blaming, irresponsible. We got a lot of bad attitudes. All right, it needs to be fixed. Seriously, it needs to be fixed. So what do we mean? Like individual framework, y'all. How does someone even get how does someone get to be a better individual? We got to talk about self-mastery. A lot of people have a lot of ideas, but you're not even disciplined enough to make it happen. You got to get disciplined. You got to get routine. You got to get clear on where you're going and what it is that you want. So much potential wrapped up in people, but you have difficulty making it kinetic, difficult making it move, difficulty with traction. It's frustrating for me to witness. It's even worse to be in that body where you have an idea of who you would like to be or what it is that you want, but you don't know how to get there. It's frustrating for me to witness it because I'm very sensitive to it because it's a part of my mission to unleash people into it. So it's frustrating for me to witness it, which is why I spend so much time fixing it. It's even worse to be it, to actually be in that purgatory where you can see some light, but you can't get out the cave. That's a bad position to be in. And a big part of why people can't get out of the darkness is because you're not consistent enough moving in the same direction. What are consistent enough moving in the same direction in a systematic, orderly, principled way to get what it is that you want. So we got people with a lot of ideas, but not embodying it, not practicing it, and then not consistent enough when you do try it. We have a lot of people that lack discipline. People that in your attention span, the attention span of people is ridiculously low. People aren't reading books. Can't even listen to a full 1 hour podcast episode. It's hard for you to get through a 90-second reel without commenting because you're triggered already at 30 seconds in. So these are things that we have to fix in people. People's attention spans, focus, discipline, consistency. Now, some people who are aligned with this mission already have that. Seriously, that's definitely not everybody. It's not even most people. There's a minority of the minority who already has those things in order, but you've been a lone wolf. Here's another issue that we have, especially among Black people. The people who can do it, the people who are doing it in their individual lives are so fed up with y'all that ain't doing it that we spend too much time with ourselves or with our one other person or with our little 3 to 4 people in our little circle, and we don't connect with other people who are also have the same mind. So you might already have the discipline, the consistency, the values, and all of these things, but you're even limited because you're not connected to others. And so you don't even have the opportunity to see your efforts magnified and amplified. You don't get the rewards, the mental and emotional rewards of being in a space where you are validated by like-minded people who have the same energy, the same principles, values, and character moving in the same direction. Because those of us that can do it and are doing it spend too much time with ourselves being lone wolves or in your little circles, and we don't trust people enough to get connected to them, or you're too exhausted to try. Is that true or false? So we have to change that. So some people who are very low on their self-mastery, very low on self-mastery. Okay? We have some people that are much more self-mastered, but aren't connected. Now, I want to use this comment as an example. He said, I tried that, started a meetup group, ended up with more sneaky link babies than marriages. That's a failure of leadership. That's a failure of leadership. Leaders have not been stringent enough. Those of us that do know how to do it and are doing it aren't stringent enough. Sometimes you try to help too many people and you let too many people in the door that do not share the same values, and you do not put 2 feet on the ground about the code that is required to be in this group. You're not discerning enough to get people out that don't fit, and then you end up with outcomes that don't match what your intention was. It's a failure of leadership. Don't draw enough lines, aren't clear enough about the boundaries and standards, aren't quick enough removing people or rehabbing people when they don't align with those standards. That's failure of leadership. People are going to do who they are. People's actions match who they are. So if you're not discerning enough or clear enough about who you need to be in order to be here, don't be confused about the outcomes you get on the other side. People don't just start doing things that they were never going to do. They do what they were always going to do, and then they had enough margin with you to do it. It's a failure of leadership. When people aren't meeting the code of character, when people aren't clear on how to meet the standards, it's a failure of leadership in rehabbing that person, or a failure of leadership in getting that person out because they're not who they said that they were and they refuse to be that, to become that. It's a failure of leadership. So that's an example, y'all, of how to be responsible for the outcomes that you get. Everybody is responsible for their own behavior, but the outcomes that you get in your environment are your responsibility. You manage that. And we really don't, so we got to get clear on, this is a part of the individual development, y'all, in that framework. You got to get clear on standards, clear on boundaries, clear on vision, clear on mission, clear on your values. On the relational side, because again, the people who are truly aligned with the mission desire, want, and will work for and work within their relationships. If you've sworn off relationships or you got a bad attitude, you're already not the right fit. We can rehab that, but only if you're open and willing. On the relational side, you've got stuff like emotional intelligence. I see that we definitely need to get clear on what emotional intelligence even is. People are very confused, and I understand it's one of these terms that has been, it became a pop psychology kind of term, but it actually has a lot of meaning, and we need to get clear on what emotional intelligence is and all the components of it. Because a lot of people think that they're emotionally intelligent because they can identify a couple of emotions, but emotional intelligence has many other facets, and we need to get clear on that and dispel some myths about emotional intelligence. If you're not willing to become more emotionally intelligent, you have capped the quality of your own relationships. Okay? If you really think, if you're like, I already got it down, you're already limited. In any area where you're like, I don't need anything else, you are limited. You're the problem. In any area where you're like, I'm good on that, you're capping the quality of your own experiences. So emotional intelligence is needed for better relationships. Conflict resolution. You need to learn how to have conflict better. Some people, especially when you are already aligned, right values, right character, right motivations, sometimes your patience gets really, really thin. And you don't have enough patience to be in conflict when there's different opinions, different perspectives, or someone has a different belief than you. Your patience becomes very thin. And you end up in a self-righteous kind of place. Thank you for receiving that. See, that's so helpful. What a helpful example with Wealthy Firefighter that said, I received that. I was able to produce positive outcomes for myself, but I didn't effectively gatekeep. That's responsibility right there. Round of applause for Wealthy Firefighter. That's what we need to see is where did I drop the ball? Where was I too lax? Where was I too nice? Where was I too uninformed? Where I could not maintain the environment to create the vision that I had in mind. Anyway, conflict resolution. You got to have better conflict. Some people have a lot of conflict because they don't have a lot of emotional intelligence. Some other people have a lot of conflict because you don't have enough patience. So you need to understand how to have better conflict. Conflict should be the most, it's so productive in your relationships when you know how to do it right. And when I say right, I mean in a way that follows some principles about conflict that help you to go about conflict in a systematic way where conflict is always productive and never destructive. The relational framework involves you got to learn your attachment. A lot of people got familiar with attachment styles, which is great. I do a lot of work with attachment. I used to talk a lot more about it. We're going to get back into it next season. I'm running my program Reattach again for it'll be for women. So I already have some people that are ready to sign up for that. We're going to get back into Reattach, which is a group to help people shift their attachment from insecure attachment to secure attachment. Austin's going to learn how to run Reattach for men. So important. Oh my gosh. When y'all get your attachment style down, it's going to make your relationship game so much easier, y'all. So much easier. And I'm not talking about just knowing what your attachment style is. I'm talking about knowing how to manage it. I'm talking about knowing how to identify it when the insecure attached part of you starts showing up and knowing what to do about it. How to manage someone else's insecure attachment when it shows up in them. When you understand your attachment style, y'all, it's a key to relationships. And so we need men and women to get on that. We need Black men and women to get on that. All right. So these are some things that we got to get into, y'all. I was on here for a lot longer than I expected. I have a couple more notes. I have a couple more things I want to share with you. I haven't even been in my notes. These are now I got a couple things right here that I want to just go. I'm going to just go down a list because I don't even remember what I wrote on this. Because I've been on so many different roads here, but this was nice. This was nice. This was a good little conversation. So clearly I'm here for serious people. All right. Essentially what I've learned is I have to use Instagram now as basically like a billboard, like an ongoing billboard for myself and my work. Okay. Instagram's like an ongoing billboard, but the real work is done offline, y'all. The reels and the podcast, I've been saying this for years. The reels, the podcasts that's not doing work, y'all. That's gaining some awareness. You're really not doing work though. I hear a lot of people saying, I'm doing the work. I'm like, I need you to tell me if you're not getting the outcomes that you want, but you keep talking about, I'm doing the work. I honestly I don't just trust you. I don't just trust you because when you're doing work and if the work is following particular principles, there are outcomes that you will inevitably get. And so when you're not getting outcomes that you want, I question the work that you're doing. I'm doing the work. I need you to outline that. If you're not getting what you want and you're talking about you doing a whole bunch of work, I need to know what it is that you're doing. So clearly I'm here for serious people. Instagram is basically just like a billboard. But the work that we're doing, let me see. The work is really outside of Instagram, outside of YouTube, off of Apple, off of Spotify. It's really in our one-on-ones. It's in groups. We're going to have a Patreon opening up in the summer. We're going to have a retreat. Should be having a retreat at the end of the year. The work is done outside. So I really encourage you to get ready to get off of Instagram if you're really trying to do something. All right, we talked about economy, main cabin, and first class. Economy seaters, and that's the majority. I do not expect the majority of people to do this. So I'm talking to the minority of people who actually are willing to invest in themselves to get what it is that they want. I'm talking about people who are the minority. We know first class seats, it's about 12 seats. It's going to be the smallest group on the plane. So this is you're probably someone who is in the minority wherever you go. You're in the minority. That's why we have so many lone wolves who want the right thing, who do the right things, but who end up by themselves. You're probably in the minority of people. And if you're in the minority And it's not because you're an antisocial crazy person and you're in the minority because you feel like you don't fit the mainstream. You actually like to do the right thing. Like you're actually into that. You're the person I want. Okay. You're the man that we want in here. You're the woman that we want in here. You're the kind of person that fits. Okay. I'm talking about the rejects, y'all. I'm talking about the mainstream rejects. I'm talking about there's something in you that won't allow you to even sink too low. Like there's something in you that buoys you up. You might have like played a little bit, okay? You might have gone a little bit left. Okay, you might have taken a couple sharp turns in the wrong direction, but there's something in you that won't even let you stay there. There's something in you. You might even be in some weird environments or a bad relationship right now, but there's something in you that says, this is not who I am. And something has to change. I'm talking about y'all, okay? I'm talking about y'all. By the way, a side note, a lot of people are in relationships they should have never started. And we need to talk about that. A lot of people I talk to on their consults if they're in relationships and the kind of issues that y'all are dealing with, some people are dealing with in their relationships. When I get to understand what's going on, I'm like, y'all should have never been together. You should have never been together. Now, I don't come out and just say that straight up, but I'm going to start just having to say it. A lot of these people a lot of y'all should have never even been together. And things like loneliness, which men and women face, things like loneliness, fear of being alone, tired of being by yourself, or ignorance. You don't even know what you're looking for. You just ended up in this relationship unintentionally because you weren't applying intention, unintentionally, without intention, ended up in a relationship that is now causing you a world of problems. When you become married to that person, your problems will become magnified in a way that you cannot imagine. So some people need to be stopped right now in their relationships before you take this thing too far. Okay. And those of you who are single, I would love for you to take this opportunity in this next season to get really clear on what it is that you want and need and how to set your standards and how to vet and how to date and how to be in a healthy relationship so that you don't end up like some of these suckers who now, because what I hate to see is we got people who are tied up in situations with people that they should have never been in. And it's like, if they were just more informed, if they were just more serious about themselves, they wouldn't have ended up in these kinds of situations that now have cost them so much. We're not just talking about money. That's the least of my concerns. You're talking about you have lost hope. That's bad. You've lost hope. You've lost sanity. You've lost peace. You've lost time. There's a lot of consequences to being in relationship with the wrong person. Anyway, let's just run down this list. Like, we gotta go. I want people, this is the last thing, I gotta go. I want people who are practical and reasonable. Practical and reasonable. Practical and reasonable. People who are solution focused. Some people are so tied to their identities or their little labels or their little groups that they're not even worried about what works anymore. They're just trying to be right, or they're just trying to be accepted. And so they fail to see the inefficiencies in their practices or their theories. I need to work with people. We need to have people who are pragmatic, not dogmatic. Pragmatic, not dogmatic. Dogmatic is like you have to believe certain things or else, or you're out. Pragmatic is what works. What works, and being willing to change when what used to work no longer works. That does not mean abandoning principles. You'll see that when you have that, principles remain the same, circumstances change. That's a conversation for a different time. Principles are based on truths, big T truths that across time do not change. Principles and truths don't change. Circumstances change. Context changes. And when you're considering context and circumstances, like when you're considering another individual in your relationship, and you're considering this other person, whatever principle that works best in relationship, that is going to stay the same no matter who you're in a relationship with. But based on who that person is, you work that principle a little bit differently. That principle is applied in a way that makes sense for the relationship. I'm talking about, we need pragmatic people, not just people who say this has to be a certain way all of the time for everyone, but says there is a way, there is a truth that if I follow it, it leads me to the right outcome. But based on who you are, or based on where we are, or based on other circumstances and context, I take that principle and I apply it to the circumstance. I take the context into consideration. I take our differences in individuality and our perspectives into consideration. I don't abandon my beliefs. I don't abandon my values. I do consider the context. All of those silly internet games, like these black and white, it's always this, it's always that, she is always this, and he is never that. He is always this, and she is never that. He should never do this, she should never do that. He should always do this, he should always do that. It's rigid, and it's unrealistic, and it's not applicable, and it's not helpful. It makes you feel safe because it gives you an illusion of certainty that if I make it happen if I get these very specific circumstances, then I'll be okay. But that's not the world that we live in. We live in gray area. We need clear truths to work in gray areas. This is good, y'all. I gotta listen to this again. I have to listen to this podcast again. I have to listen to this. I think I might need to take some notes. So when you're trying to get everything in this very particular box, you'll be disappointed, confused, and dissatisfied because you will never get it. That's not human. We're dynamic. There's context. There's circumstance. There's all of these variables. Some people, listen, aren't emotionally intelligent enough. Their minds aren't flexible enough to consider the context. So they want black and white. They want it's this or that. And they are the most difficult people to be in relationship with because you can never please them. Somebody stop me when I'm lying. I mean, come on. So I'm looking for a very particular person, y'all. I'm looking for people who appreciate code of character, high values and morals, a higher way of being, high energy. I'm for people who can admit there are some big T truths and some very helpful principles that allow us to get certain results. I'm looking for that person, but I'm not looking for only that person because you all get stuck in dogmatic and rigid ways of being. I'm looking for someone who is also flexible, who is also open, who wants to hang on to the big truths and wants to work the principle, but who's willing to consider context and who's willing to flex and understand that there's individuality that we have to consider, that you don't abandon your values and you don't abandon your principles. You're only going to see how strong your principles and values are when you put it in situations that don't look like you. It doesn't sound like you. The principles still work. You think that somebody got to think like you and be like you and do everything like you, and you think that's the only thing that works. No, the principle works for everybody. The fallacy is that you have to look like me, sound like me, do like me, or you're wrong. No, you can do a whole lot of things differently than me, but we connect because we have the same values. We work through differences because we can work the same principles. When you're in a very close relationship with somebody, Okay? We were talking about marriage, right? When you're in a very close relationship with somebody, you're going to love them so much and realize y'all are so different in some significant ways. You're going to be like, I thought I knew you. because I imagined you to be away. I put something on you that didn't belong to you. And then when I run into the real you, if I'm not flexible enough, if I'm not aware enough to know that, oh, this difference doesn't mean that we disconnect. This difference means that we can understand. We don't abandon the principles. We don't abandon the values. We apply them to our differences and we come to understanding. I could not have said that better. I got to listen to this again. I have to take some notes. This is good. I'm writing up, this might be a book. I need to write this down. I need to write this down. So we have to have conversations in reality, y'all. And that does not exist. That's not a black and white world. It's gray, and there are differences between us. No matter how much we love the other person, no matter how much we share the same values, we're going to run into some differences, and it's going to be startling. And if I don't know how to handle that, I'll disconnect with you when I'm supposed to stay to understand you. Thanks, Mallory. It's good to see you. Mallory, me and Mallory went to high school together. Yeah, tell your dad I said hi. Tell Derek I said hey. I still remember what your dad said to me when we were doing the SCA end of year, senior year speeches. I still remember what your dad said to me. It was powerful, really powerful, really powerful. They're a really great family. This is good, y'all. I gotta go. I'm gonna say this last thing. I think this is important. I'll message you, Mallory. I'm really behind in my DMs. I got a week off, y'all, coming up, and then I have a whole month off of the podcast. I got a week off coming up. I got to get to so many DMs and so many emails. It's crazy. I'm taking a whole week off. It's just good. Y'all, this is good, y'all. This is so good. Last thing. I'm going to talk about, well, two things. One, we need to bring humanity back in the chat. We got to bring humanity back into the chat, right? Like the social media games, it was fun, and it's definitely not fun anymore, okay? People are very upset, and we need to bring humanity back into the chat. We need to bring humanity back to the front. Okay? Come back to decency, humanity, which is not polarizing, it's connecting, okay? I'm looking for people who believe in actual equality. Yeah, this doesn't mean that you accept everything in your life, but I believe that you have the right to choose your life. See, what I'm not going to do is try to get someone to think or be different. At the same time, this is an example of what we just talked about. At the same time, I don't abandon my values or principles. So one of my values is respect. It's a top value. It's at the very top, respect. And respect is not insulting you. Respect is not blaming you. Respect is not condemning you. Okay? Respect is allowing you. Self-respect is not allowing you to do it with me. Okay? Fine lines. What I can't do is spend my time trying to make someone think different. All we can do is show the truth of what these principles, values, and morals look like when you act them out. And that's all the proof that someone needs. When you try to convince and persuade somebody through just talking, you make them defensive and you have no opportunity to change. Someone will not change and they will not connect with you when they're offended by you. And when we get so dogmatic in our thinking, we create these boxes, we create these walls between us, and we're like, you have to get on my side. And even if you have a better way, they're not coming because you have created a defensive situation. And it's a waste of my time. I cannot spend a bunch of time calling out people for everything that they're doing wrong. It's helpful to paint a picture. It's not helpful in motivating change. I want you to understand that. If I wanted to just go big on Instagram, all I would do is get on here and call people out. That's all I would have to do. I would just sit up here with these glasses and this messy bun and this black sweatshirt and just call people out. And people would love it because they don't want to have to do the work of understanding the other person. We would rather be more self-righteous and condemn the other person. And all that does is push them further away. So those of us that feel that we have the right way need to behave better. We have to behave better. More humanely, with more respect. Last thing here, y'all, politics and religion. I'm going to talk about what we're not supposed to talk about. Last thing here, y'all, politics and religion. I'm going to talk about what we're not supposed to talk about. Let me do this real quick. I'm going to talk about what we're not supposed to talk about very quickly. Politics and religion. Black people in particular have very specific leanings. We have very, let me just say it. Almost all Black people are Democrats. And almost all Black people in America are Christian. I'm going to say this because it's very important that you understand me. It's very important that you understand me. I don't want to hide anything. Okay? I don't want to hide anything. That also don't mean I'm going to tell you every damn thing about my life. That's two different things. I don't want to hide things about me, especially as it relates to values and the way that I think. Because if I'm talking about you and the way that you think, okay, then it's very important that you understand the way that I think. Because you have to understand what you're getting into with me. What I don't want to do, all right, is give you something that sounds good to you and then you find out later that I have certain viewpoints and now you're disappointed and you're upset. I would rather, let's do this like we're dating. Let's talk about it on the front end before we get really locked in and really attached to each other. Before we even go that far, on the front end, let's just talk about some non-negotiables so that you know what you're getting in with me. Because what I don't want to do is now we get all connected to each other and we're attached to each other. And now we've got hope tied up with each other. And I'm not who you thought I was. It's really important that we set the stage. So I'm going to talk about politics and religion. Black people in America, almost all Democrat, almost all Christian. This is a major, in my opinion, my perspective is that this really puts Black people in boxes that disallows them from being pragmatic and solution oriented. Because you're so tied to an identity that becomes dogmatic for you. You have to believe a certain thing And if anything sounds like it's anything other than, not even different, not even totally in opposition to, but just other than, you become defensive and afraid to hear it. So Black people in America in particular, everybody wants me to start saying that I'm talking about America. White people, when they get on damn Instagram, they don't have to say white America, where, by the way, I'm not German. You can tell I'm American, damn it. I have clients that are in all different parts of the world, but I'm talking about American Black people, all right? So if you're going to try to ask me to say American, ask that white person to say it's not France, it's not Germany, it's not, damn it, stop. Cut it out. You see I'm American. Be for real. Black people in America, which is the only country I talk about, North America is the only continent I talk about. Black people are so Christian and so democratic that if a Republican or if a Muslim is speaking the truth, you turn your ears off because they don't identify the same way as you. As if Christians or any political party, Democrats, have some monopoly on truth. And Black people miss out on a lot of good information because they don't identify the same as you. And it really shows, right, that like, even if somebody has a truth for you or something that's helpful for you, just because you don't believe the same thing, have the same viewpoint, you won't hear them. So it doesn't matter to me how you vote or what religion you are. Because my value and my principle is not Democrat or Republican or Christian or Islam. That's an identity. It's a faith. I have a value that's related to spirituality, but that doesn't mean that I have to align with a particular faith. We can have a religious conversation another time. And I probably need to do a whole episode about my whole journey and do all that and all that stuff. But I want to just highlight that for a moment. Because we have Black people who literally, so let me just use me as an example. Black people who literally are like, I love what you're saying, but you remind me too much of somebody who might end up on Fox News. So you're going to ignore, I'm not even talking politics, but can you see how silly that sounds? So I'm saying something that you can clearly see is helpful for you, that something in you saying there's something here for me, but you don't like Fox News. And so something that could actually progress you to the goal that you need to get to, you can't hear it because you got an issue with Candace Owens. You can't hear it. Women, you can't hear it because I remind you too much of Kevin Samuels. So when you are so in that identity, you can't see truth that transcends an identity or a group. And I think that that's a problem. So we got to get clear on what values are, clear on what principles are, and understand that different people in different groups can be aligned with the same truth. Different people in different groups can be aligned with the same truth. And rather than trying to make someone see that, we just have to keep talking about transcending and looking at the truth and embodying that and pointing people to that. All right, y'all, that's it. That's the end of the season. That's the end of the season, y'all. Next season, I'm going to have a series within the season called Straight Facts. And we're going to be talking a lot about statistics and facts and just get up to date and get really clear on what's going on in terms of marriage and divorce and a lot of things that are intersecting with that. We're going to be getting into the individual and relational frameworks for progression, right? Like, what do you need to be a peak individual? What do you need for peak relationship? The thing that I want, that we really want to start to understand is what you need to do in order to get the highest quality experience that you want. The highest quality experience that you want. What are the things that need to be in place? What are the principles that need to be worked? What are the truths that need to be acknowledged, accepted for you to be able to create the highest quality experience that you want within yourself and with others? Okay?
Thanks for listening, y'all. I'll see you next season. If you have not subscribed to me on YouTube, please head there, subscribe. If you're on Apple, please take a moment to rate and write a review. I really appreciate it. And I will see you very soon.